Hey, what's going on, community? This is actually a video I've wanted to touch on for a while now, and it's not just important for liquid loans and for people who are going to hold loan token, but a lot of DeFi protocols actually. And it's looking at staking rewards or vesting rewards. A variety of different things in DeFi will have APRs and they'll pay things out. And there's a couple of things that I really want to touch on. One is the time component and how those are measured, and the other is also really, really important too. And it's if you're getting yield and something that is also risk on or speculative. Here's a couple of tables here from the Dune Analytics page that's on Liquity. And this is showing the redemptions and issuance gains and rewards that are paid out to Liquity holders. Again, all these mechanics are basically identical inside of liquid loans. So what's interesting here is you see on this time table here, you're going to see that like chronologically that these rewards are very uneven as far as their distributions. Like you have days with big rewards and smaller days. But if you looked at this as an APR, say you looked at it over a 7-day range or a 30-day range, you're just going to get one number. It's going to say 6%, 30%, 4%. And this is similar to things like Hex, or there's another place where like you look at like MEV payouts for different types of validators, especially on ETH, where their block rewards are, relatively stable, but then you're gonna get these big spikes if you happen to actually be the originator on the block. There's a lot of places in DeFi where we express the rewards in an APR, but they're really very individual payouts that are very different from day to day. So the big thing is just highlighting it similar to like when we talk about price appreciation. We typically say it went up X amount over 7 days. It went up Y amount over 30 days or like the year gains. But when you actually go back and look at these, typically if you look at say like the year over year gains, most of the real gains happen in a handful of days. This is something that's you can highlight in tons of assets, but especially in crypto where the best 10 or 12 sort of green candle days could be responsible for the vast majority of gains that a coin has over an entire year. Why highlight this? Well, it's important to think about certain events. So again, if you're from kind of the RH ecosystem, you think about things like Big Payday or some of the massive unstakes we've seen. There's all these different events where you're going to get these spikes in uneven distributions, but we're still going to kind of express those and say, hey, the APR, the APY was this. So individual days can actually be responsible for the vast majority of gains. So you could be sort of a week late and miss a big chunk of the rewards over a certain time frame. But when you go to look and say, okay, what's the APR on this or the APR on a liquidity farm? And you can see that, again, sometimes these things will have really large variances from day to day. So that's something to highlight to make sure that you're thinking about what events could affect whatever protocol, but especially for something like liquid loans, obviously that early phase will probably see a big rush. You could see this with, again, different kinds of price movements inside of PLS. Lots of little things could affect what days have these big dramatic spikes. And it's something to maybe add to the calculus or at least think about and kind of add to your game plan and try to look at it with a little more granularity. The other topic, this one I think is really interesting as well. And it's how you plot these out or how you want to lay out your portfolio or your risk profile when you're looking at an APR or an APY and what you're being paid out in is also speculative. So let's say that you're in, if you think about some like TradFi instruments, treasury bonds, typically, say the yield on a savings account, we're going to get paid in dollars. So $1 now, $1 that, next year, it's the same valuation. Obviously there's inflation, a few other things that go along with with fiat, but essentially dollar in, dollar out. Where that can be really different when you look at the payouts and yields in DeFi is that, let's take Hex. You can say, well, my APR for this length of time was 6%. But if you saw a 2 or 3x throughout that, then your realized gain on that could be 12, 18%. So similar to like Pulse Chain validators. I know a lot of the validators who look at them running their hardware and they don't think, hey, I made X%. They just look at it as a way of accumulation. They have a very long time horizon. So they say, over a given time span, I got a 10% yield. But if I see 3, 4, 5, 10x of a price appreciation on that yield before I go to sell, well, then that return was significantly higher. So that's something else to think about when you're, say, comparing, let's say, like the APR in a stablecoin to stablecoin pairing. Okay, so in that particular example, you're going to have basically nothing risk on, right? 2 stables and a payout in stables. So how you would look at that APR is a little more direct than, say, something like the loan token payouts where you're going to have things in PLS. You're going to have that speculative nature to how that yield is actually calculated. And a big part of how much your return will depend on when you go to choose and sell. So those are 2 really big factors that people should be looking into and thinking about. Obviously, some of that is very LS specific, but a lot of that is just how do we really quantify what our yields are in different DeFi protocols and how to really accurately look at yields. We'll have a lot more coming, but I always like to drop a little heat when I can, give you guys some alpha on DeFi. Y'all stay tuned. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the content. You guys get at me. I'll talk to y'all soon.